All right. Here we go. I'll give like an introduction.
Okay.
And then I'll just kind of say, you'll know when to talk.
Yep.
All right. So don't talk until I let you know here how to do intro. All right. Hi, I'm Austin Eartham. Taylor Patton is out on business, but welcome to the Kitchen Table Podcast. This week's 1440, we're talking about motivation. We got a friend of mine, Ryan Dixon, who's a much better teacher, coach, and mentor than I am. But Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk some motivation here. So you're not recent, but you're now a father, right?
Yep.
Teach kids during the day.
Yep.
Coach football.
Yep.
Youth sports too?
Nope.
Nope, just football?
Just football and that's it. Yeah.
Just football. Okay. So you will coach youth sports.
Yeah, down the road I will for sure, yeah.
All right, so the purpose of the 1440, remember, is to get out and get 1% better in one area of your life. And basically, we're talking about motivation today. So how, if you had to tell kids in your classroom on Monday morning and say, I want you to be motivated just today for 14 minutes, how would you go about doing that?
I would start with the why. Why are we doing what we're doing? So I feel like a lot of kids, especially in today's world, need that, verification of why am I doing what I'm doing? Like, why am I doing another assignment for some reason? Or, so having them start with that why and understand, this assignment goes towards this, we're working down the road, to get to this end point. And, just why every little thing we do in class is important. So I think if kids know why they're doing what they're doing, you're more than likely to get them to do work for you.
Yeah, it's definitely, I get that question all the time. Why do we have to learn
Why
this?
am I learning this? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yours is probably a little more applicable during, health and...
I try to make it that way. I try to tell them that you can take this stuff and apply it to you in the real world. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to put anything on you that's... I don't want any busy work. I want you to be able to take everything we do and apply it outside of school. That's always kind of my goal with it.
Yeah. Which is probably a little easier in football just because they want to be there, right?
Yes.
They're going out for football or being whatever. So Ryan actually went to you and I before me as a long snapper, and that's kind of how we met. Motivation in the kicking world. How do you get motivated after you mess up? Any position, really. How do you get motivated after you mess up and everybody knows you mess up? Long snapper, if you snap over someone's head, it is obvious, right?
They know your name now. You don't want that. But
so how do you respond or get your motivation back to, hey, I want to be better, but not be intimidated maybe by the next snap or the next rep?
I think you just got to know you're human, and you don't want to make mistakes. And all the reps you put in the off season, you do it for those reasons to try to be perfect. But when you do have a mishap, you have a bad snap or a bad hold or a bad kick, you just got to be able to flush it and move forward and not compound the issue. I always remember, Nate Caden always says that, well, you're only as good as your next kick. He always says that all the time, and he still says it to this day, when you work with him and talk with him, and he talks to other kickers, and I use that same montage with my snappers. Hey, you're only as good as your next snap. Move on to the next one. It's okay. And, from the coaching side of things, too, I feel like, I've seen a lot of coaches that can really get on kids, when they mess up and make it a negative, whereas it's just a learning point. It's time to learn and fix and adapt and move on. So I think from, my token of if I ever messed up as a snapper is just got to flush it, move on to the next one, and know that plays over.
I love the compound effect because that's something a lot of people don't think about, is they're so in tune with I just messed up, but they don't think about, okay, that event is over. It no longer has effect on me, right? It already happened. It's in the past. You can't change it, but you can write the future. So, okay, how can you? I used to always get told to flush it or whatever, or talk to somebody on the sideline about your mess up, and then you can literally, it's like throwing a piece of trash away. It's gone. But if you're thinking about it over and over, then you're gonna compound it, and then it just gets worse, right? So,
absolutely.
My parents used to always say, if you do like bad on a test or whatever, to stop digging, right? The easiest way to stop digging a hole is to stop digging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing I thought that you hit on well, we talked about three types of three components of motivation, I guess, in our earlier episode. So it's activation, then it's persistence, and then it's intensity. And we talked about how the hardest one to do is probably that persistence.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about how you were at UNI being a long snapper and now being a teacher and a coach. Have you had an instance in your life or in your teaching career or coaching career where somebody hasn't been motivated and you gave that activation to them and then maybe not fully seen it through, but at least had them be somewhat persistent in it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any stories that you can share about that?
I feel like I got quite a bit. I have a pretty recent one with a student currently that struggles with going to class on time, and it's a football player of mine this year and a pretty good athlete. And so, you know, as a coach and someone that wants the best out of him, you know, the life skill of just being punctual and get into class on time is important, and it's huge. And so I've pulled him in multiple times in my office, and we've had the talk, you know, about, you know, why are we not getting to class on time, and just I'm persistent with him. Like, hey, I'm not letting up on this. And I think by me staying on him, it shows that I care. It shows that someone's here to say, hey, I'm watching you. I know you can do better. Let's get to class on time. Let's make that one little step and just do the right thing. And so, you know, it just, from his end, it's that small 1% that you talk about.
Yeah.
Like 1% today. If I'm missing class 3 out of 7, today let's make it 2 out of 7. Let's get a small
little bit
step.
better.
Yes. Yeah. And so we're working on it. We're staying persistent on him.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where we are with him right now.
I like how you, it shows a lot of motivation on your part, because it'd be so easy just to say, you know what, this kid's never going to make it. He's got great athletic ability, but he's not going to make the grades. He's not going to put any effort in. I don't want him on my team type of deal. But it shows, like, I love how you put that motivation on yourself to say, hey, I got to be persistent, or otherwise there's no way he's going to be, right?
Yep.
So by you being, I mean, obviously that role model towards him, hopefully he would look up to a coach or something like that, especially a male figure.
Absolutely.
I feel like is a big component of 9th graders.
Yeah.
It's a little harder to reach maybe a female as a male or a male as a female as a teacher.
Yes.
Anyways, I lost my thought. But I want to hit on a couple other things here with motivation. Why is it important? Why keep going after the kid? Why is motivation important? Why does he need it?
I just think, you know, most kids, if they don't have someone at home that's pushing them, at least I can be there to push them. Or, and that's any kid out there. He just happens to be the current one that's on my radar. But there's more, you know, kids that we're dealing with every day that just, they need that extra push that, hey, I believe in you, you can do it. And usually it seems to me that the ones who start to fall behind a little bit, they just don't have that self-confidence yet. That, you know, do I belong? Am I important? Is this important to me? And if you're there with them every day, on them, and they're probably annoyed by you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But if you're on them all the
definitely.
time, like, hey, listen, I care. Let's go. Let's do what we got to do. So yeah, I find it important to just really help out everyone.
So if in a perfect world, what would be, we've talked about the activation, you keep nagging him, right? You got to do this, got to go to class on time. You have that persistence that you're putting into him. Hopefully he's responding to you. How do you crank up that intensity in the motivational scheme? What's his timeline in 2, 3, 4 years?
Yeah. So actually, we had the talk when I pulled him in the office the last time, and we had the serious talk. You know, what do you want to do in life? We went down that road, and you know, and he would say what he wants to do, and we got back to that why. What I talked about in the beginning of, you know, okay, you want to be a professional athlete one day. Okay, so how do you make that? How do you get that done? And just be able to transfer the whole task of going to class on time, how it's going to affect you to what goals you have in the future. If you can take that little step, then you sure as heck can do whatever it is down the road. But it's got to start there for him to continue on. So I'm a big component in applying everything to life skills. And so if it gets through, it gets through. Yeah.
What if it doesn't get through? How do you deal with that?
I've definitely had the cases. You know, I'm in my, I gotta think about it now. I think I'm in my 8th year teaching, and I've definitely had students that, you know, you try, and it didn't quite get through. It's disappointing because you know the potential that student had, but from my end, I know that I gave everything I had to him. You know, you talk about persistence, and I feel like, you know, if you're giving your all to that kid, I mean, you can feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I always say there's a difference between giving up and just moving on.
Right.
Right? Everybody thinks you gave up, right? You didn't do enough. But if you're doing something 2, 3, 4 months out of the year and they're still not responding, then at some point there's other people who do want help,
Yeah.
do need that motivation. Yeah. They're just waiting for somebody to have their back, you know?
Yes.
I think that's an important point to make. Also in the episode earlier this week, we talk about how it's important as a motivator to be, this is probably more in the coaching realm than just the standards in teaching. You gotta have some sort of challenge, but it can't, I called it the yellow light theory.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's red light, way too hard, right? No way they're gonna get it. If it's green, it's way too easy.
Yep.
Right? How do you balance to find that yellow light? Especially in high school when kids are all over the place in different skill development.
Yeah, I think about our football team this year. I mean, it was my first year, getting to be the head coach of the freshman team, and extremely talented group. I mean, they were undefeated, and there's definitely times that, you talk about the green light. To them, they thought that it was just easy. They could just show up, go to practice, we're going to win on Thursday night. And as a coach, you talk about the motivation piece of, right now you might be where you are, but 3-4 years when you see these guys again as juniors and seniors, everyone's going to grow, everyone's going to be different. So you can't start developing habits and be in that green light down there of just going through the motions of practice every day. So being on them and staying on them and letting them know, like, we're just battling ourselves. It doesn't matter who we're playing week by week. If you practice every day with a purpose and you know what your outcome is and what goal you're trying to achieve, then it doesn't matter who you're playing. So taking that into everyday practice and trying to just push them to be their best is always, you said yellow light. I feel like that's just you can kind of stay steady there. So.
Yeah, I remember us talking after a few games and basically saying how talented they were. But again, you think about as 9th graders, you're 14, 15. A third of them haven't even gone through puberty yet.
Yeah, probably. You'll see some crazy growth spurts. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, everything can change as a junior, senior, and life just happens too. Like I think something people forget about in motivation is that everything's good until it's not good.
Yeah.
So how can you, if you had one piece of advice, let's say you're walking in the first day here as we're wrapping up, the first day of school next year, you're walking in before you, not even teaching content, what is one piece of advice to motivate them, not just in school, not just if they're on the football team, how do you motivate them for what they want to be in life? How did you motivate the guy who sat in your office and said, hey, what do you want to be in life? And he tells you, I know you want to apply it to real life. What other advice would you give them or yourself or anybody listening today to have more motivation that's lasting? That doesn't just run out because stuff got hard.
I've always said, we can motivate as much as we want on our end, and then at some point, motivation kind of wears off.
Yep.
That instant, hoorah, I'm ready to go, I'm fired up, day 1 of school, Mr. Dixon got me fired up, I'm ready. Well, day 2 comes, day 3, 5, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and all of a sudden that motivation starts to wear off.
Yep.
And that's where you got to start getting that self-discipline and really get into, you got to love the process of school or football practice or weight training or whatever it is you're doing in life. And so being able to take what you had from motivation and truly, once that wears off, how are you going to be intrinsically motivated and not rely on other people around you to take that and go? So I challenge everyone to, take in that motivation, take in what you hear from people, but then at some point you got to have that drive yourself and take it and do what sucks, but to get better.
It is a grind at some point. I mean, even as teachers, February is the
month.
crappy month. Yeah. But I like how you said you got to have intrinsic, because I talk about in this first section about having motivation is something that wears off. It's just like bathing, right? But you need it every day.
Yep.
Right? Day 2, day 3, it gets harder and harder and harder. How can you, if you're intrinsically motivated to reach a goal, life is so much easier because you want to do it.
Yep.
We're gonna wrap it up there exactly at 14:40. We'll put all the socials in the description. Ryan, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good night, guys. Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Boom, boom.